3 years ago, she fell off a cliff. When she woke up, she remembered everyone but me. She looked at me like I was a stray dog on the street. I took care of her for a month, feeding her medicine and washing her feet. My hands were dirty. Then I ran. I ran to this Jiangnan town, opened a noodle shop, and changed my name to Li Dan, thinking that's how I'd spend the rest of my life. But today she came. She kicked open my shop door. The tip of the sword, called Astonishing Swan, was only an inch from my throat. The sword aura made the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. She had recovered her memory. Her eyes were full of fire. She asked me, word by word, "My husband, Li Chang'an, where did you run off to 3 years ago?" I trembled and raised the rolling pin in my hand, forcing a smile that was uglier than crying. "Wife, it's windy, let's talk inside. Or, how about a bowl of noodles first?" She didn't come inside. The sword moved forward half an inch. My throat instantly saw red, and a thin trickle of blood dripped down the blade. Cold. That was my only thought. Li Chang'an. She called my real name again. I hadn't heard that name in 3 years. Hearing it now, it was like she was calling someone else. My name now is Li Dan. That's what everyone in town calls me, easily and naturally. "Wife, you've mistaken me." The rolling pin in my hand was still raised, and my arm was starting to ache. "Li Dan, a noodle saye." She didn't speak, just kept looking at me. Her eyes were still so beautiful, with the corners slightly upturned. When she looked at people, it was like she was alluring them, and also like she was killing them. In the past, when she looked at me, it was the former. Now it was the latter. All the customers in the shop had run away. A 3-year-old child was hiding under a table, left behind when his mother fled. The child was crying loudly, terrified. The crying annoyed her, and she frowned. I knew what she would do when she frowned like that. When she was on the mountain and the birds in the forest bothered her with their chirping, she would frown like that, and then with a wave of her hand, all the birds in the forest would never chirp again. No, wife, I was wrong. I am Li Chang'an. I threw the rolling pin on the ground, making a clatter sound. I am that heartless husband of yours. Kill me. I stretched my neck and closed my eyes, as if presenting myself for execution. In my heart, I chanted, "Hurry, give me a quick death. Don't torture me." But after waiting for a long time, the sword on my neck didn't move. I secretly opened one eye. She was still standing there, dressed in white, exactly the same as she was 3 years ago, as if the hardships of those 3 years hadn't left a single mark on her. She was still so beautiful, unreasonably so. "You're quite aware of yourself." She finally spoke again, her voice as cold as the sword. "Of course," I immediately replied. "I've been looking forward to it day and night, hoping that you'd come find me. Wife, I know I was wrong. I deserve to die. I'm worthless. These 3 years without you, I couldn't eat well or sleep well. Look, I've even lost weight." As I spoke, I patted my stomach. The noodle shop was doing well. I'd gained 20 pounds in the last 3 years, and the flesh on my stomach made a thump sound when I patted it. The corner of her mouth twitched. I knew she wanted to laugh, but she was holding it back. "There's hope." I persisted. "Wife, look, in these 3 years I've been reduced to selling noodles just to feed myself. These hands used to draw your eyebrows, and now they knead dough. This nose used to smell the fragrance on your body, and now it smells the broth. This mouth—" "Shut up." She interrupted me. The sword retracted an inch. The pressure on my neck immediately lessened. I quickly shut my mouth and looked at her expectantly. She stepped into the shop. She walked silently, her toes touching the ground like a cat. She walked around my little shop, touching and looking at everything. My shop was small, with only 4 tables. The tables were greasy. She touched one and wiped her hand on her clothes in disgust. Finally, she walked to the stove and lifted the lid of the pot. Inside the pot was the pork bone soup I had just finished making, milky white with a few chopped green onions floating on top. The aroma immediately wafted out. "Noodles." She uttered a single word. I didn't react. "Make noodles," she said again. The sword tip pointed at the pot. I understood. "All right. What kind do you want, wife? Shredded pork noodles? Plain noodles? Or my specialty, pork intestines noodles?" She looked back at me. her gaze like knives. I immediately changed my tune. Plain noodles. I'll make them right away. I guarantee you'll eat your fill. I nimbly grabbed a piece of dough from the cutting board and threw it into the pot. The water was ready boiled. The noodles were handmade by me, and they were done as soon as they rolled in the water. I took a large bowl, put lard, soy sauce, and chopped scallions at the bottom, and poured boiling water over it. The aroma immediately wafted out. Then I scooped the noodles into the bowl. A bowl of steaming hot plain noodles. I respectfully presented it to her. She found the cleanest table and sat down, with the amazing swan sword placed beside her. She picked up her chopsticks and took a bite of noodles. The way she ate was beautiful too, small bites without a sound. Just like 3 years ago. Only then her eyes were empty. Now, her eyes could kill. I stood to the side, barely daring to breathe. She ate very slowly. She took almost a quarter of an hour to finish the bowl of noodles. After finishing, she put down her chopsticks. Awful, she said. My heart sank. I was done for. Too salty, she added. Yes, yes, yes. I'll put less salt next time. I nodded and bowed. The noodles are too soft, not chewy enough. Yes, yes, yes. I'll take them out earlier next time. The scallions are chopped too coarsely. Yes, yes, yes. I'll pat them with the back of the knife before chopping next time. For every word she said, I responded with a yes. After she finished speaking, she fell silent, just looking at me. I looked back at her. We stared at each other, wide-eyed. The little kid hiding under the table had stopped crying at some point, and now poked out a small head, looking at the two of us. She finally spoke again. You've been living this kind of life for these 3 years. My heart ached, and I almost cried. I nodded, Not bad, she said. Then she stood up. My heart leapt to my throat. She's finished eating. Is she going to attack? She picked up the sword on the table. My legs went weak, and I almost knelt. Wife, let me explain. She ignored me, carried the sword, and walked towards the kitchen. I was stunned. What was she going to do in the kitchen? I followed her and saw her standing in front of my bedboard. Behind my noodle shop was where I slept, a hardboard bed, a yellowish quilt. She stretched out her foot and kicked the leg of my bed. I'll sleep here tonight, she said. Huh, I was dazed again. You have a problem with that? She looked back at me, her eyes narrowed. No problem. I quickly shook my head. You sleep, you sleep. I'll sleep by the stove. Shim, Ed. Then tossed the sword onto the bed. Clank. From today on, you're not allowed to go anywhere. Until you pay off your debt, you're going to stay here and make noodles. I'll kill you again when my anger subsides. After saying that, she lay down on the bed, closed her eyes, and seemed to fall asleep. I stood there, looking at her, then looking at the sky outside. The sky was still blue, and the sun was still hanging there. But why did I feel like my sky had collapsed? My name is Li Changyan, but it's not my real name. I chose this name myself. I have no father or mother. I grew up wallowing in the mud. The first character I learned was the rice character written on the rice shop owner's sign. The second character was the pawn character at the pawn shop's entrance. Later, a storyteller, drunk, collapsed in the broken temple where I slept, muttering something about riding a swift horse in the triumphant spring breeze, seeing all the flowers of Chang'an in a single day. I thought the two characters Chang'an sounded nice. I'll take the surname Li, the Li of mud. So I call myself Li Chang'an. I met Feng Nanyan while I was being beaten for half a steam bun. That bun I snatched from a dog's mouth. The dog wasn't happy and chased after me, trying to bite me. The dog's owner wasn't happy either and chased after me with his servants, beating me. I was beaten and rolled on the ground, covered in mud. Then she descended from the sky. She really did fall from the sky. She was dressed in white, just like a fairy in a painting, except this fairy didn't seem to know how to walk very well. She missed a step and fell from the top of the wall, landing right on the servant who was beating me the most fiercely. The servant let out an ouch and fainted. Everyone was stunned. I was stunned too, still holding that half-eaten, mud-covered bun in my mouth. She climbed off the servant, brushed the dirt off her clothes, her brow furrowed, clearly in pain from the fall. She saw me and the bun in my mouth. She didn't say anything, just looked at me. At that time, her eyes weren't cold, they were empty. An emptiness that didn't care about anything. The dog owner, a fat man, came to his senses and pointed at her, yelling, "Who are you? How dare you knock down my man?" She glanced at the fat man. Just that one glance. The fat on the fat man's face trembled, and he took 2 steps back. Scram. She only said one word. Then the fat man, along with the remaining servants and the dog, really did scram. They ran away, scrambling and crawling. Only me, her, and a servant groaning on the ground were left at the scene. She walked up to me. I was so scared that I spat out the bun in my mouth. She looked down at the bun on the ground, then looked up at me. "You want to eat?" she asked me. I nodded, then shook my head. I wanted to eat, but I didn't dare to say it. She didn't ask any further and turned to leave. I thought she was leaving, and I felt a little empty. But she walked to the steamed bun shop at the corner of the street and said something to the owner, who nodded and bowed, filling a big bag with steaming hot meat buns for her. She came back carrying the buns and threw them into my arms. "Eat," she said. I held the oiled paper bag, and the heat passed through the paper to my hands, burning me and making me tremble. I had never seen so many meat buns in my life. I looked up at her. She still had that indifferent expression. "Follow me," she said. "I'll feed you." That's how I started following her. At that time, I didn't know her name was Fong Nan Yen, nor did I know where she came from. I only knew that she was very rich and very good at fighting. She walked with a wind about her, and no one dared to mess with her. She took me to the best inn and asked for the best room. She told me to go take a bath. This is the first time in my life I've bathed in such a large wooden tub. The water was hot, and there were flower petals scattered in it. I scrubbed off at least 3 pounds of dirt. After changing into new clothes, I didn't even recognize the person in the mirror. Although still thin, I was clean, almost like a real person. When I went outside, she was sitting by the window, wiping her sword. It was astonishing goose. The setting sun shone on her face, making her profile unbelievably beautiful. She heard me come out and glanced back at me. "What's your name?" she asked. "Li Chang'an," I said softly. She nodded, neither approving nor disapproving. "My name is Fong Nan Yen," she said. Only then did I learn her name. Fong Nan Yen. It sounded much better than Li Chang'an. That night, I ate 8 meat buns, so full I rolled around on the bed. She just sat beside me, reading a book without saying a word. When I stopped rolling, she finally spoke. "Can you read?" I shook my head. "I'll teach you." From that day on, she really started teaching me to read. She wasn't a patient teacher. I was stupid. Even after she taught me a character 3 times, I still couldn't remember it, and she'd hit me on the head with the sword scabbard. It gave me bumps all over my head. "Pig," she'd scold. "Il est juste green sharpishly." She also taught me swordsmanship. She said I had extraordinary bones, that I was good material for martial arts training. I didn't know what extraordinary bones meant. I just knew she made me hold a horse stance for 2 hours at a time until my legs felt like noodles. She, herself, would just sit beside me, drinking tea. "Li Chang'an, straighten your back. Li Chang'an, focus your chi in your dantian. Li Chang'an, if you wobble again, I'll poke 100 holes in you." Afraid she'd really poke me, I gritted my teeth and persevered. The days passed by like this. I slowly realized that she seemed to be looking for someone or hiding from someone. We had to move to a new place every 10 or 15 days. She was always lost in thought, looking at the horizon, her eyes far away. At that time, I had only one thought in my mind. I'm sticking with this woman. She feeds me, teaches me to read, and teaches me martial arts. She's the best person I've ever met in my life, even though she always calls me a pig and hits me on the head with her sword scabbard. But I know she doesn't hit me hard. The days I spent with Fong Nan Yen were simple, really. During the day, she taught me martial arts, and I ended up bruised and battered. At night, she taught me to read, and I got scolded relentlessly. But there were times when we weren't practicing martial arts or studying. Like when we were traveling. She didn't like riding in carriages, said they were stuffy. We always walked, from south to north, and then from west to east. When wildflowers bloomed by the roadside, she would stop to look at them for a while. She wouldn't say anything, Just look. And I would stand beside her, watching her. I thought she was more beautiful than the flowers. I said, Nanyan, look at those flowers. They're not as pretty as you. She would turn her head and look at me with that "are you stupid?" kind of look. Smooth talker, she'd say, but the corners of her mouth would turn up just a little. I knew she was happy. We passed a river. The water was so clear you could see the stones at the bottom. She would take off her shoes and put her feet in the water. Her feet were very white, her toes round like pearls. I would sit next to her, using a branch to draw lines in the water. Li Chang'an, look, there are fish in the water, she said. I see them. I said, not as pretty as your feet. She splashed water on my face. Get lost, she said. The water was cool, but I wasn't angry, just grinned. At night, we stayed at inns. She slept on the bed. I slept on the floor. Sometimes I couldn't sleep in the middle of the night, so I would open my eyes and stare at the rafters. Sometimes she wasn't asleep either and would talk to me. Li Chang'an, what do you think people live for? She asked. To eat, I said without even thinking. In the darkness, I could hear her chuckle. Pig, she scolded me again. What about you? I asked her. She didn't say anything. A long time passed, and just when I thought she had fallen asleep, she spoke. I don't know, she said. I think I've lost something very important. I'm looking for it. My heart skipped a beat. What will you do if you find it? I asked. If I find it, I'll take it back. Her voice was soft but firm. I didn't say anything either. I felt a little panicked. I was afraid that if she found it, she wouldn't want me anymore. I was just a burden she had picked up along the way. The reason she brought me along might just be because she was bored. Once, we encountered rain and took shelter in a dilapidated temple. The rain was heavy, pattering down. It was very cold in the temple, so we lit a big fire. I was shivering from the cold. She glanced at me, sat closer, a little closer. Then she took off her coat and draped it over me. Her clothes had a very nice smell, faint, hard to describe, but nice. Aren't you cold? I asked her. Not cold, she said. Looking at the way the firelight reflected on her face, I felt warm inside. I don't know where I got the courage, but I reached out and hugged her. Her body stiffened. I thought she was going to slap me away. I quickly said, I'm just too cold, just trying to warm up. She didn't move, nor did she push me away. I just kept holding her like that. Her body was very soft, unlike her who was so hard. We just held each other like that, listening to the sound of the rain outside. After a long while, she said, Li Chang'an, do you like me? My heart beat like a drum. Yes. I buried my face in her neck, my voice muffled. Why, she asked. You're pretty, I said. Anything else? You feed me. Anything else? You taught me how to read. Just that. Yeah. She didn't speak again. I thought she was angry. Just as I was about to let go, she hugged me back. Very tightly. Idiot, she said. That night, we hugged each other and slept in the dilapidated temple. The next day, the rain stopped and the sky cleared. We continued on our journey. She was still the same cold, as if what happened last night never occurred. But some things were different. She started picking food for me. When I was doing horse dance, she would wipe my sweat. When I was bullied, she would beat that person so badly his own mother wouldn't recognize him. One night, she was asleep and talking in her sleep. She called out a name. Not Li Chang'an. What she called was Senior Brother. Her voice was filled with tears. I lay on the bedding on the floor, my eyes open, staring at the roof beams all night. I seemed to know what she was looking for. We finally stopped at a place called Broken Cloud Mountain. The mountain was very high, as if it had been split in half by a sword, with cliffs on one side and a sea of clouds rolling beneath. Feng Nanyan said that the person she was looking for was on this mountain. She was going to see him. I asked her, then when you see him, will you come back? She looked at me, but didn't say anything. The look in her eyes was very complicated, and I couldn't understand it. She didn't let me follow her when she went up the mountain that day. You wait for me here, she said to me. I watched her back as she disappeared at the end of the mountain road. My heart felt terribly empty. I waited in the small town at the foot of the mountain. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. She didn't come back. I panicked. I couldn't help it and went up the mountain. The mountain road was difficult to walk, all stones. I climbed for half a day before finally reaching the summit. At the top of the mountain was a Taoist temple, very dilapidated. I walked to the entrance of the Taoist temple and heard voices inside. One was Feng Nanyan's. The other was a man's. "Junior sister, are you still unwilling to hand over that thing?" the man said. "Senior brother, don't even think about it." Feng Nanyan's voice was cold. "That was left by Master, not for a traitor like you." "Traitor?" The man laughed. "Master was senile, passing the position of sect leader to you instead of me. In what way am I inferior to you? Just because you're the daughter he picked up?" "Shut up." Feng Nanyan's voice was filled with anger. Then there was the sound of weapons clashing. Clang, 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 very rapid. I peeked inside through the crack in the door. I saw Feng Nanyan fighting a man in a cyan Taoist robe. The man also held a sword, and his swordsmanship was very treacherous. Feng Nanyan's soaring goose sword was as fast as lightning, but the man seemed very familiar with her sword techniques, always managing to avoid them in advance. The two exchanged over 100 blows, with no clear victor. I watched in terror. I knew that going up there would be suicide. My little bit of clumsy skill wasn't enough for even one of his sword strikes. I could only anxiously watch from outside. Suddenly, the man jumped back, pulled something from his pocket, and sprinkled it on Feng Nanyan's face. It was a powder. Feng Nanyan reacted quickly, immediately closing her eyes and using her sleeve to block it. But she still inhaled a little. Her body swayed. You used poison," she cursed. "All's fair in war, junior sister," the man said, laughing smugly. "How do you like the taste of 7 Emotions powder? It won't kill you, but it will make you completely forget the person you care about most, the one you have the deepest feelings for." Feng Nanyan's face paled instantly. She looked at the man, her eyes filled with hatred. She raised her sword and charged again, but her sword was slower. Her footwork was also chaotic. The man seized an opportunity and struck her chest with a palm. Feng Nanyan spat out a mouthful of blood, and her whole body flew backwards like a kite with a broken string. The direction she flew in was exactly toward the cliff behind the Taoist temple. I watched with my own eyes as she fell. "Nanyan!" I cried out in a heart-wrenching voice, and without thinking, I rushed in. The man was stunned when he saw me. "Who are you?" I ignored him. I ran to the edge of the cliff and looked down. Below was all clouds. I couldn't see anything. My mind went buzz, and everything went blank. "Nanyan!" I knelt by the cliff edge, and tears suddenly streamed down my face. The man walked up behind me. "Oh, I remember now. You're the little beggar junior sister picked up on the road?" He chuckled. "Well, it's just as well. Now that she's dead, that thing will be buried with her. Saves me the trouble." With that, he turned to leave. I don't know where the strength came from, but I leaped up from the ground and pounced, biting down on his arm. I bit with all my might. "Ah!" he screamed, kicking me away. I rolled twice on the ground from his kick, spitting out a mouthful of blood. There was still a metallic taste in my mouth. He looked at the tooth marks on his arm, and his eyes turned red. "You're courting death." He raised his sword and walked towards me. I knew I was done for, but I wasn't afraid. I had only one thought in my head. I had to avenge him. Just as his sword was about to pierce me, a clamor came from outside the Taoist temple. "Hurry! The sect leader is inside." A group of people wearing the same Taoist robes rushed in. The man's expression changed. He glanced at me, his eyes as if poisoned. "Consider yourself lucky." He threw down these words, leaped, and jumped out of the window on the other side, disappearing in the blink of an eye. The people who rushed in saw me and looked at the cliff. "Where's the sect leader?" they asked. I pointed to the bottom of the cliff. Everyone's face changed. They began to lower ropes down the cliff to find her. I waited by the cliff. I waited from day to night and from night to day. On the morning of the 3rd day, they finally brought Feng Nanyan up. She was still alive, but she was unconscious, her face as white as paper. I rushed over and grabbed her hand. Her hand was very cold. I cried. I cried like a fool. Feng Nanyan woke up. After lying in bed for 7 days and 7 nights, she opened her eyes. The Taoists were all happy. surrounding her and calling out sect leader. I was squeezed to the very outside, unable to see her. I could only hear her speak. Her voice was very weak, with a hint of confusion. "Oh, are you?" she asked. Everyone was stunned. An elderly Taoist stepped forward and said, "Sect leader, I am Qing Feng. Don't you recognize me?" Feng Nanyin looked at him and shook her head. Who am I?" she asked again. The Taoist temple was silent. The old Taoist, named Qing Feng, sighed and said to the others, "The sect leader fell from the cliff and injured her head. I'm afraid. She has lost her memory." My heart sank to the bottom. That dog thief senior brother's 7 emotions powder was actually real. It makes you forget the person you love the most completely. After all the Taoists had left, I dared to walk to her bedside. She also looked at me. Her eyes were unfamiliar, like when we first met. No, even more unfamiliar than then. Then her eyes were empty. Now they were wary. "Who are you?" she asked me. My heart felt like it had been cut with a knife. I opened my mouth, wanted to say I am Li Chang'an, but the words caught in my throat. She had already forgotten. The Feng Nanyin who would hold me and call me fool was gone. I'm a cook. I lowered my head and made up a random identity. I managed the cooking in the Taoist temple. "Shio," and didn't say anything else, turning her head and sighed. She didn't want to look at me. For the next month, I really became a cook in the Taoist temple. I decocted medicine for her every day and made the dishes she liked to eat. She liked sweets and didn't like spicy food. She liked to eat fish, but she didn't like fish bones. I remembered all of this. I removed the bones from the fish meat one by one before giving it to her. She didn't say a word while she ate. After she finished, she pushed the bowl to me. "Take it away." When I brought her the medicine, she frowned and drank it. Bitter. Once, I saw that she couldn't sleep well at night, and her feet were always cold. So I heated a basin of hot water and brought it to her room. "Let me wash your feet. Soaking them will make you warmer," I said. She glanced at me and didn't refuse. I squatted down and carefully put her feet into the water. Her feet were still so beautiful. I gently rubbed them with my hands. As I rubbed, my tears fell into the basin. She seemed to feel it, and her feet recoiled slightly. "Your hands are dirty," she said. My movement stopped. I looked up at her. Her face was undisguised disgust. At that moment, I understood. She didn't just forget me. She forgot all the good times we had. In her eyes, I was just a person with an unknown identity and dirty hands, a servant. The reason she could tolerate me staying here was probably because the Taoists told her that I was the first one to discover her fall from the cliff. She was just repaying a kindness. I carried the basin of water out, my heart as cold as the water in the basin. I began to be afraid. I was afraid that her senior brother would come back. Now that she had lost all her martial arts and didn't remember anything, if that dog thief came, she would be meat on the chopping board. I was also afraid that she would regain her memory one day. That 7 emotions powder was for forgetting the person you loved most deeply. If she regained her memory, would the first person she remembered be her senior brother? The senior brother she once loved and hated to the bone? What am I? I'm just a small episode in her life. Once she's better, she won't need me. The more I thought about it, the more afraid I became. One night, I had a nightmare. I dreamed that her senior brother came back and pierced her chest with a sword. I woke up in fright, covered in cold sweat. I walked to the door of her room and secretly watched her. She was sleeping soundly, the moonlight shining on her face. She looked like a child. I made a decision. I can't stay here any longer. Me staying here is a burden to her, even a danger. That dog of a senior brother recognizes me. If he comes back, the first person he'll look for is me. I have to leave. Leave far, far away, where she can't find me, where that dog can't find me either. Only then will she be safe. I returned to my woodshed and packed my small bundle. Inside were only 2 changes of clothes and a jade pendant she had given me before. Before dawn, I left the Taoist temple. As I went down the mountain, I glanced back. The Taoist temple on the mountaintop was faintly visible in the morning mist. I said in my heart, "Feng Nanyin, please take care. Li Chang'an is not worthy of you. From now on, Li Chang'an will no longer exist in this world." only Li Godan, wallowing in the mud. I made a makeshift bed next to the stove. I couldn't sleep at night. Feng Nanyan slept on the bed in the inner room, separated by a curtain. I could hear her breathing, very light, very even, exactly the same as when I watched over her bedside 3 years ago. At that time, she was unconscious, and I would listen to her breathing like that all night long, and only then would I feel at ease. Now, listening to her breathing, my heart is filled with panic. How did she find me after all? How has she spent these 3 years? What about that dog of a senior brother of hers? My mind was a mess. I tossed and turned, unable to fall asleep no matter what. One more turn, and I'll chop you up and make you into meat filling. Her cold voice came from behind the curtain. My body stiffened, and I didn't dare to move. She wasn't asleep. Wife, I called her softly. She ignored me. You, how did you find me? I couldn't help but ask. Long legs, walked here myself, she replied. There was no point in talking anymore. I asked again, then these past 3 years. None of your damn business. Fine, I shouldn't have asked. I closed my mouth and laid down obediently. After a long while, she spoke again. Li Chang'an. Yes, I'm here, I quickly replied. Why did you run? This question has finally come. How should I answer? Should I say I was afraid of implicating you? Say I was trying to protect you? She's angry right now. Would she believe what I say? She would only think I was making excuses for myself. I fell silent. What, afraid to speak? Her voice carried a hint of mockery. It's not that. I organized my thoughts and decided to tell half the truth. I'm afraid, I said. Afraid of what? Afraid that your senior apprentice brother will come back and cause me trouble. I can't beat him, and staying would only be a burden to you. So you ran away, leaving me, someone with amnesia and no martial arts, alone on the mountain. Her voice suddenly turned cold. I was speechless. You're a coward, she concluded. I didn't refute it. Yes, I am a coward. I was afraid to face the possibility that she might hate me, and even more afraid to face the possibility that she might fall in love with someone else again. I chose the simplest and most selfish way. I ran away. Is there anything else you want to say? She asked. No more, I sighed. Wife, you can kill me or slice me, as you please. But can you postpone it for a couple of days? Why? My noodle shop just took a big order. The Wong family in the east of town is marrying off their daughter and ordered 100 bowls of longevity noodles. I've already received the deposit. If I die, this order will fall through, and I don't want to be someone who goes back on their word. I found a clumsy excuse. In the darkness, I heard her chuckle. Li Chang'an, you're really incorrigible. About to die, and you're still thinking about your few bowls of noodles. Phoenix, I'll give you 3 days. 3 days from now, after you finish making those 100 bowls of noodles, I'll personally send you on your way. After she said that, she fell silent. I knew that this matter was settled. I had 3 more days to live. I opened my eyes and looked at the ceiling. I couldn't say whether I was sad or what. It felt like a stone was finally about to drop. It's all right. Dying at her hands is better than dying at someone else's. In this life, she picked me up from the mud and made me live like a human being. If I die in her hands in the end, it can be considered a fitting end. Thinking like this, I actually slowly fell asleep. The next day, I was awakened by a burst of fragrance. I opened my eyes and saw Feng Nanyan standing in front of the stove. She had changed into a neat set of short clothes, her hair was tied up high, and she was kneading dough. I thought I was seeing things. I rubbed my eyes. That's right, she was kneading dough. Her movements were very awkward, even clumsy. Flour was all over her face, white, like an opera singer. But her expression was very serious. You, what are you doing? I asked. She turned her head and glanced at me. Making noodles, she said. Do you know how? No. Then you learn. She only said one word, then lowered her head to deal with the lump of dough. I watched her. Sunlight streamed in from outside the door, falling on her, outlining her with a golden edge. Suddenly, I felt this scene was a little unreal. The aloof, ethereal Feng Nanyan, actually learning to knead dough in my little noodle shop. Was she going to inherit my noodle shop after I die? Feng Nanyan learned to knead dough very seriously, but she didn't seem to have any talent for it. When others knead dough, they knead it until it is smooth and elastic. When she kneaded dough, it was as if she had a vendetta against it. Bang, bang, bang. She lifted the dough up, then slammed it heavily on the kneading board like she was beating someone. Flour flew everywhere, even landing a layer on my hair. "Madam, that's not how you knead it." I really couldn't bear to watch, so I went over and said, "You have to use the strength of your wrist, pushing forward, then rolling it back. Look like this." I reached out my hand, wanting to give her a demonstration. As soon as my hand touched the dough, her hand pressed down on my hand. Her hand was very cold. "Don't touch me," she said. I quickly pulled my hand back. "Okay, you do it yourself." I retreated to the side. She continued to struggle with the dough. In one morning, she smashed 3 lumps of dough, none of them successful. Finally, she gave up. She wiped the flour off her hands onto her apron, turned around, and said to me, "You do it." "All right." I went over and, with a few quick movements, kneaded the lump of dough that she had smashed beyond recognition. She just watched from the side, without speaking. Her expression was a little complicated, as if she was unconvinced and also something else. At noon, customers came to the shop. I made the noodles, and she sat behind the counter, holding her sword, acting as the cashier. She didn't speak, just coldly watched every customer who entered the shop. The customers felt uncomfortable being stared at by her and didn't eat their noodles happily. There was a man who had drunk a little wine and was bold enough to tease her. "Little lady, you are really beautiful. Give your grandpa a smile." Feng Nanyan didn't even raise her eyelids. She just slammed the astonishing swan sword beside her onto the table. With a clang, the entire table split in half from the middle. The man instantly sobered up from his alcohol and ran away crawling. From then on, no one dared to look at her again. My business also suffered a lot. In the evening, after closing the shop, I calculated the accounts, and today I earned 30 coins less than usual. I held the account book, looking worried. "What is it?" she asked me. "Wife, if you keep doing the accounting like this, my noodle shop will close sooner or later," I said. "Close it then," she said indifferently. "That won't do," I said anxiously. "This is my life's work." She glanced at me, her eyes like she was looking at an idiot. "Li Chang'an, have you forgotten that you're going to die in 3 days?" I choked. "That's right, I'm going to die. Why should I care about this noodle shop?" I sighed and threw the account book aside. "Wife, are you hungry? I'll make you some noodles." She hummed in agreement. I made her a bowl of pork intestine noodles. This was my specialty. The intestines were cleaned thoroughly and braised until fragrant and soft. She never used to eat these things. She thought they were dirty. I thought she wouldn't eat them. But she picked up her chopsticks and ate them expressionlessly. She ate everything, even drinking the soup. "How is it?" I asked cautiously. "Not bad," she said. "It's just a little greasy." I felt a little happy. She was willing to eat something I made. After finishing the noodles, she didn't go straight to bed like yesterday. She sat there, wiping her sword, using a very soft cloth, wiping it over and over. "Li Chang'an," she suddenly said. "Yes. The day I recovered my memory, I was in a cave," she said. My heart tightened. She was going to start talking about the last 3 years. I was being chased and killed and hid in a cave. I was badly injured and had a high fever, delirious from the fever. Then, I remembered everything. I remembered my name is Feng Nanyan. Remembered I had a senior brother named Qin Ye. He poisoned me and pushed me off a cliff for the position of sect leader. Also remembered. She paused, looked up, and looked at me. I remembered I have a husband named Li Chang'an. When I needed him the most, he ran away. Her voice was calm, with no hint of joy or anger. But I knew that beneath that calmness was a tsunami. After I recovered from my injuries, the first thing I did was find Qin Ye. I killed him. I gasped. She killed her senior brother. Then, "I came to find you." She looked at me, her eyes like ice. "Li Chang'an, I kill my enemy. Now, only my creditor is left. What are you planning to do to repay what you owe me?" I opened my mouth, but couldn't say a word. How could I repay her? My life, it all belongs to her. With a plump, I knelt down before her. Wife, I was wrong. My life is yours. You can take it any time. She looked at me kneeling on the ground and didn't let me get up. She stood up and walked in front of me. She reached out, pinched my chin, and forced me to look up. Her fingers were cold. Killing you is too easy for you. Her face was very close to mine, and I could smell the faint, pleasant scent on her. I want to make your life worse than death. I thought the life worse than death that Feng Nanyan spoke of was some kind of torture, like hanging me up and beating me or crippling my martial arts. In the end, she just made me work. Washing vegetables, cutting vegetables, kneading dough, tending the fire, and washing dishes. All the bowls in the shop were my responsibility to wash. She would sit beside me, holding her sword, and supervise me. If I was even a little slow, her sword scabbard would come knocking. Faster. Didn't you eat? That's not clean. I was like a coolie being supervised. What was even more excessive was that she wouldn't let me sleep in the bed anymore. Not even a makeshift bed by the stove. She made me sleep at the door and threw me a roll of straw mat. You keep watch, she said. The nights in Jiangnan are still a bit cold. I hugged the straw mat, huddled behind the door, shivering from the cold. I heard her toss and turn inside the room. Wife, I whispered. I'm cold. If you're cold, figure out yourself, she said. Or you could just go die now. Then you won't be cold. I shut my mouth. It's better to live miserably than to die well. I dragged the flour sacks over to block the door to block some of the wind. And I endured the night like that. When I woke up the next day, I had sneezed several times. It seemed like I had caught a cold. Feng Nanyan glanced at me, but didn't say anything. The day for old Master Wang's longevity noodles had arrived. I had to start preparing from the morning. 100 bowls of noodles was no small amount. I was a little dizzy, my nose was also stuffy, and I was a little weak doing the work. When kneading the dough, my hand went limp, and I almost dumped a basin of flour on the ground. Feng Nanyan couldn't stand it anymore. Get lost. She pushed me aside. Then she started kneading the dough herself. She still wasn't good at it, but she was much better than yesterday. At least I wouldn't smash the dough on the cutting board. She kneaded the dough, and I tended the fire beside her. The firelight from the stove painted my face a rosy red. I watched her profile. She was very focused. Fine beads of sweat were forming on her forehead. Suddenly, I thought this was pretty good. If only time could stop at this moment, that would be wonderful. Even if she always treated me like this, I would accept it. What are you looking at? She asked without turning her head. Looking at how beautiful you are, I answered subconsciously. Her movements paused for a moment. Slick talker, she scolded. But her voice didn't seem as cold anymore. We worked hard all day and finally made 100 bowls of noodles. Someone from Master Wang's household came to pick them up. Watching the noodles being carried away, load after load, I felt an indescribable sense of fulfillment. I wiped the sweat from my forehead and smiled at Feng Nanyan. Wife, we finished. She didn't smile, just said, She looked at me, her eyes a little strange. Li Chang'an, she said. Yes. 3 days are up. My heart sank at once. Yes, 3 days were up. The days I had left to live had come to an end. The smile on my face froze. I know. I lowered my head. The shop was very quiet. Only the hawkers' cries from the street outside could be heard. You. She started, then stopped. I waited for her to pronounce my death sentence. After waiting for a long time, she finally said, Come here. I walked to her. She reached out and touched my forehead. Her hand was still so cold, but it felt comfortable on my burning forehead. You have a fever, she said. Only then did I realize that I was burning all over. My head was heavy, and my feet were light. So I wasn't just tired, I was sick. Go lie down on the bed. She pushed me toward the inner room. Lie down. Her tone was unquestionable. I was confusedly pressed onto the bed by her. It was her bed. The bed still had her scent. She covered me with a quilt. You aren't going to kill me? I asked. Kill, she said. I'll kill you after you get better. I don't want to owe a sick ghost a favor. Having finished speaking, she left. I lay on the bed, covered with her blanket, smelling her scent. My heart was filled with mixed emotions. What was she really thinking? After a while, she came in carrying a bowl of dark, murky medicine. The medicinal smell was pungent. "Drink it." She handed the bowl to me. I took it, flinching from the heat. I looked at the bowl of medicine, not moving. "What? Are you afraid I'll poison you?" She saw through my thoughts. "No." I shook my head. "I was just thinking, if I drink this medicine and get better, would that really be my death? If I don't drink it and stay sick, can I live a few more days?" The moment that thought came out, I was shocked myself. "Li Chang'an, when did you become so afraid of death?" I gritted my teeth, picked up the bowl, and gulped down the entire bowl of medicine. It was so bitter that my face scrunched up into a ball. Phoenix Nanyan looked at my expression, and the corners of her mouth seemed to curve upwards for a moment. Just for a moment, and then it was gone. She took the empty bowl from my hand, turned, and left. I lay in bed, delirious with fever. I seemed to see her come in again, take a wet cloth, and place it on my forehead. Cool and comfortable. I also seemed to hear her sigh beside my bed. She said, "Li Chang'an, you are truly my nemesis." I was sick for 3 days. For these 3 days, I lived like a pampered lord. Phoenix Nanyan took care of me. She fed me medicine, wiped my body, and even made food for me. She learned how to cook porridge. Plain white rice porridge, cooked thick and mushy. When I took the first bite, I almost threw up. There was no salt. "Wife, this porridge." "Shut up and drink." I had no choice but to drink the tasteless porridge with a bitter face. She just sat by the bed and watched me drink. When I finished, she would take the bowl and get another bowl. I felt like I wasn't recovering from illness, but being force-fed. On the 3rd day, I got better. I could get out of bed. The first thing I did when I got up was go to the kitchen and cook myself a bowl of noodles. I added lard, soy sauce, and even a poached egg. I ate with gusto, feeling that this was how a person should live. Phoenix Nanyan stood at the doorway, watching me. "Full?" she asked. I nodded, my mouth still stuffed with noodles. "If you're full, it's time to hit the road," she said. The chopsticks holding the noodles stopped in midair. What was coming was still coming. I swallowed the noodles in my mouth and put down my chopsticks. "Okay," I said. "Where do you want to do it? In the shop? Or outside?" "Let's go outside. Don't want to dirty my shop," I added. She didn't say anything, just picked up her sword and walked out. I followed her. We walked to the small river outside of town. I knew this place well. I used to come here often to fish. There was a big willow tree by the river and a big rock under the willow tree. Fong Nanyan stood on the rock, the wind blowing her white clothes, fluttering. She really looked like a fairy. She drew her startling goose sword. The blade was dazzlingly bright in the sunlight. "Li Chang'an, do you have any last words?" she asked me. I thought about it. Didn't seem to have anything to say. "Just one sentence," I said. "Speak." "Wife, in the future, please don't cook for yourself." "Really?" The hand holding her sword trembled slightly. "You're asking for death," she seemed angry. "I'm going to die anyway," I said bluntly. I closed my eyes, waiting for the sword to come. The sound of the wind, the sound of the water, and the sound of my heartbeat. Once and again. After waiting for a long time, my neck was still fine. I opened my eyes. She was still standing there, holding her sword up, not bringing it down. She looked at me, her eyes very complicated. There was anger, unwillingness, and a trace of something I couldn't describe. "Li Chang'an," she said through gritted teeth, "I asked you, 3 years ago, before you ran away, why did you go to the best gold shop in town to buy a phoenix hairpin?" I was stunned. How did she know? "Why did you put that phoenix hairpin under my pillow? Why did you leave me a letter saying that you ran away with another woman and told me not to look for you anymore? Did you think that just because I lost my memory, I wouldn't be able to find anything out?" She asked a series of questions. I was speechless. Yes, before I ran away, I did those things. That phoenix hairpin, it cost me all my savings. That letter, I asked the scholar in town to write it for me, and it was terribly written. The reason I did this was to make her hate me, to make her think I was a complete bastard, a heartless man. That way, even if she recovered her memory, she wouldn't think of me again, wouldn't come looking for me again. She would start her new life. I thought I had done a perfect job. Unexpectedly, she still found out. I didn't know how to explain. Do you think you're being great by doing this? Her voice was choked with sobs. Do you think you're protecting me? Li Chang'an, what right do you have to make decisions for me? She shouted it out. Tears streamed down from the corners of her eyes. This was the first time I saw her cry. Before, no matter how bitter or difficult things were, she never cried. She was beaten. She didn't cry. She fell off a cliff. She still didn't cry. But now she was crying. For me, this bastard. My heart felt like it was being squeezed hard. It hurt so much I couldn't breathe. Nan Yan. I walked forward, wanting to hug her. The sword in her hand was suddenly pressed against my chest. Don't come closer, she said. Tears were still falling, but her eyes were still so stubborn. Li Chang'an, I'll ask you one last time. Did you ever, even a little bit, love me? I looked into her eyes. My reflection was in them. I smiled. I did, I said. From the day I snatched the dog's steamed bun, and you threw a bag of hot buns into my arms. I fell in love with you. You gave me this life, and my heart, too, is yours. It was before, it is now, and it will be in the future. I finished speaking. My heart was at peace. So be it if I die. It's worth it to let her know my feelings. The sword in her hand was shaking violently. Suddenly, she threw the sword to the ground, with a clang sound. Then she threw herself into my arms. Li Chang'an, you bastard. She pounded my back, pounding it hard. Why did you run away? Do you know how much I suffered looking for you? She cried like a child in my arms. I held her, holding her tight, as if I wanted to melt her into my body. I won't run away, I said. I won't run away ever again. I thought that after we had talked things out, Feng Nanyan wouldn't be talking about fighting and killing anymore. I was wrong. The next morning, she was standing at the head of my bed again, holding her sword. Li Chang'an, get up and cook. Her tone was exactly the same as before. I rubbed my eyes and sat up. Wife, weren't we just yesterday? Yesterday was yesterday. Today is today, she interrupted. I said I would make your life worse than death, and I will. You have to pay back the debt you owe me, slowly. All right, I think I understand now. This grandma isn't over it yet. Or rather, she didn't know how to interact with me anymore, so she could only use the old methods. Fine then, repaying debts, then repay debts. I got up, put on my clothes, and started another day of being enslaved. The business at the store was still as bad as ever. Feng Nanyan was still sitting behind the counter, acting as her cold-faced accountant. But some things were still different. For example, she would peek at me. While I was making noodles, I could feel her gaze on my back. As soon as I turned around, she would immediately turn her head away, pretending to look at the scenery. For example, she would try to take over my tasks. When I was cutting vegetables, she would come over and say, I'll do it. But the result was unevenly cut, like a dog had gnawed on them. When I was washing dishes, she would also come over and say, leave them. The result was a smash, and she broke one. My heart ached so much I grimaced. That was my favorite Celadon porcelain bowl. It's just a broken bowl. What's the big deal? She retorted. But the tips of her ears were red. I knew she was embarrassed. At night, she still let me sleep by the door. But she would throw a blanket out from the inner room. She threw it out very reluctantly. Cover yourself with it. Don't get sick again, or I'll have to take care of you, she said. I hugged the blanket, and it still smelled like her. My heart was as sweet as if I had drunk honey. I knew she was being kind to me in her own way, clumsily. That night, an uninvited guest came to the store. It was a Taoist priest. He was wearing a washed-out Taoist robe and carrying a peach-wood sword on his back. As soon as he entered the door, he shouted, "Demonic energy! Such heavy demonic energy!" He pinched his nose and wandered around the store, finally stopping in front of Feng Nanyan. He pointed at Feng Nanyan, looking serious. "Demon, quickly reveal your true form." I was in the back kitchen washing pots at the time, and when I heard the noise and ran out to take a look, I almost burst out laughing. Feng Nanyan hugged her sword, sat there, and didn't even lift her eyelids. She looked at the Taoist priest as if he were an idiot. "Boss." The Taoist priest didn't get a response, so he turned to me. "There's a monster in your store, a very fierce one. You should run away." I said, "Taoist priest, you've got the wrong person. This is my wife." "Your wife?" The Taoist priest looked shocked. How can a mortal marry a monster? You must be bewitched by her. Come, drink this bowl of talisman water. It will keep your mind clear. As he spoke, he took out a yellow piece of paper from his arms, threw it into a teacup, stirred it, and was about to pour it into my mouth. Before I could dodge, Feng Nanyan moved. I didn't even see how she moved. I just heard a smack. The Taoist priest had 5 finger marks on his face, spun around in place twice, and sat down on the ground. You dare hit me. The Taoist priest covered his face, both surprised and angry. Feng Nanyan stood up. She walked to the Taoist priest and looked down at him. Get out, she said. Just one word. But that aura was even more frightening than her senior brother Qin Weiyuan. The Taoist was so scared by her that he scrambled up from the ground, trembling, and ran away. He even abandoned his peachwood sword. I picked up the peachwood sword from the ground and handed it to Feng Nanyan. Wife, you're so impressive, I flattered. She glared at me, not taking the sword. Boring. She turned and went back to sit behind the counter. I looked at her back, but I felt a little uneasy in my heart. That Taoist, although a half-baked one, why did he say that Feng Nanyan had demonic energy? Could it be? I didn't dare to think any further. I just hoped that I was overthinking it. After that half-baked Taoist left, life returned to tranquility. Feng Nanyan still supervised my work every day, occasionally breaking a bowl or chopping up the wrong vegetable. I got used to it too. I even felt that this life was pretty good. If I could continue living like this, my life would be worth it. But trouble always comes uninvited. That day, a lot of people suddenly came to town. They all wore uniform black fitted outfits with knives at their waists, and it was clear they weren't good people. They were asking around everywhere in town, asking about a woman surnamed Feng, a beautiful woman in white. As soon as I heard that, my heart sank. They were coming for Feng Nanyan. I hurried back to the shop. Feng Nanyan was wiping the table. She was wiping it very carefully, making the greasy table so clean that it could reflect people's images. Nanyan, let's go. I grabbed her hand. Someone is looking for you. She shook off my hand. What's the rush? She was very calm. When soldiers come, we'll block them. When water comes, we'll dam it. But there are so many of them. I was anxious. If there are a lot of them, then kill a few more, she said lightly. I looked at her and suddenly felt like I had never truly understood her. Before she lost her memory, she was cold, but not with such heavy killing intent. What exactly had she experienced in these 3 years? While I was still thinking, the entrance of the shop was already blocked. More than a dozen men in black surrounded my small noodle shop, making it impenetrable. The leader was a one-eyed man with a long scar on his face, stretching from his forehead to his chin. Feng Nanyan, we from the Heavenly Fiend Alliance have been searching for you so bitterly, the one-eyed man said, his voice like sandpaper. You killed our Vice Alliance master, and that debt should be settled today. Feng Nanyan threw the rag in her hand aside. Qin Weiyuan was one of your people, she asked. That's right, the one-eyed man said. He was our Alliance master's long-lost younger brother. Killing him is making an enemy of our entire Heavenly Fiend Alliance. My heart skipped a beat. So Qin Weiyuan had such a powerful backer. No wonder Feng Nanyan was being hunted down after killing him. So what? Feng Nanyan sneered. He deserved to die. What an arrogant woman, the one-eyed man roared. Brothers go? Capture her, dead or alive. More than a dozen men in black drew their swords at the same time and rushed towards Feng Nanyan. The shop was small and quickly filled with people. The glint of blades and the clanging of metal rang incessantly. I was pushed into a corner. I couldn't see the battle clearly, only hear the sounds of weapons clashing and people screaming. I really wanted to help, but I knew that going up there would be throwing my life away. I could only fret anxiously. Suddenly, I saw a man in black, circling behind Feng Nanyan, raising his blade, about to strike. Feng Nanyan was engaged with the person in front of her and hadn't noticed what was behind. Careful, I shouted. Without thinking, I grabbed a kitchen knife from the side and rushed over. I used all my strength to throw the kitchen knife. The knife spun in the air and hit the black-clad man's wrist perfectly. With a clang, the blade in his hand fell. He turned around, glaring fiercely at me. It was just this moment of delay, and Feng Nanyan had already turned around. The startling goose sword flashed. A head flew off. Blood splattered on my face. Huh. I stood there, stunned, my legs a little weak. I killed someone. Although it was indirectly, that person had indeed died because of me. Feng Nanyan glanced at me. Her eyes were complex. She didn't say anything, and the sword in her hand moved even faster. She was like a white butterfly flitting through the crowd. With each pass, a flower of blood bloomed. In less than the time it takes to burn an incense stick, only the one-eyed dragon was left standing in the shop. Everyone else was lying on the ground. The one-eyed dragon was afraid. He looked at Feng Nanyan as if he were looking at a demon. You, who exactly are you? His voice was trembling. Someone who will kill you. Feng Nanyan, holding her sword, walked towards him step by step. The one-eyed dragon suddenly burst into laughter. Ha ha, Feng Nanyan, if you kill me, you won't live either. You've been poisoned with our alliance leader's heart-eating goo. On the 15th of every month, if you don't have the antidote, your heart will ache as if being twisted, and you'll die bleeding from all 7 orifices. Today is the 14th. After he finished speaking, his head tilted, and black blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. He committed suicide. Feng Nanyan stood there, her face instantly turning pale. Heart-eating goo. Hearing these 3 words, my mind buzzed. I held onto the table to keep myself from falling. Nanyan, is what he said true? I asked her, my voice trembling. Feng Nanyan didn't answer me. She just looked down at the hand holding her sword. Her hand was trembling slightly. I went over and grabbed her hand. Her hand was ice cold. Look at me. I forced her to raise her head. In her eyes, there was no more killing intent from before, only a blankness and fear. I had never seen that kind of emotion in her eyes before. It's true, she finally said, her voice very light, as if it would break at any moment. After I regained my memories, I killed Qin Ya and was targeted by the Sky Fiend Alliance. I fought with them for 3 months. Once, I was ambushed and poisoned by their alliance leader with a goo. He said that unless I hand over the things my master left behind, I would have to endure a heart-eating pain every month until I die. My heart felt like it was being pinched by an invisible hand. It hurt terribly. I hugged her, holding her tightly in my arms. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. What's the point of telling you? She said, muffled, against my chest, so you could die with me? Yes, I roared. Even if it's death, I want to die with you. She didn't speak. She just tightened her grip on my hand. I looked at the corpses all over the ground, and the corpse of the one-eyed dragon. The antidote must be in the hands of that Sky Fiend Alliance leader. But we don't even know where the Sky Fiend Alliance is. Tomorrow is the 15th. There's no time. What should I do? I paced back and forth anxiously in the shop. Suddenly, I remembered that half-baked Taoist priest. He said that Feng Nanyan had demonic aura on her. Could it be that what he was talking about wasn't demonic aura, but goo energy? I'll try anything. Nanyan, wait for me here. I'm going out for a bit. I threw down those words and ran out. I ran to the city god temple in town. That Taoist priest was indeed there, setting up a stall to tell fortunes. I grabbed him. Taoist priest, save me. The Taoist priest was startled by me. You, aren't you that monster's husband? What do you want from me? Taoist priest, my wife isn't a monster. She's been poisoned with a goo. I briefly explained what had happened. After listening, the Taoist priest stroked his few goat hairs and pondered for a long time. Heart-eating goo. This is one of the most domineering goo techniques in the southern border, he said. This poor priest's magical power is weak. I can't undo it. My heart immediately sank. However, the Taoist priest changed his tone. Although I can't undo it, I can suppress it a little. How do you suppress it? I was like someone grabbing at a life-saving straw. It requires 3 things, the Taoist priest said. 100-year-old He Shou Wu, a snow lotus from the heavenly mountain, and the heart's blood of someone who is willing to die for your wife. After listening, I was stunned. He Shou Wu, snow lotus, these are all rare treasures. Where can I find them in a day? Not to mention, heart's blood. Taoist priest, isn't there any other way? The Taoist priest shook his head. This is the only way. I walked out of the city god temple dejectedly. It was almost dark. I went to the pharmacy. Holding a sliver of hope, I asked the owner if he had any 100-year-old Polygonum multiflorum or Tian Shan snow lotus. The way the owner looked at me was like he was looking at an idiot. Young brother, you think this is cabbage? You think we just have it if you ask? I came out of the pharmacy utterly hopeless. I returned to the noodle shop. Feng Nanyan was sitting there, wiping her astonishing swan sword. She had already changed into clean clothes, and the bloodstains and bodies on the ground were all gone. It seemed she had accepted her fate. Seeing me return, she looked up. You're back. Yeah. I walked up to her and squatted down. I took her hand. Nanyan, I said, I love you. She was stunned. Then she smiled. A very beautiful smile, like ice and snow melting. I know, she said. Don't be afraid. I looked in her eyes and said, word by word, I'm here. I won't let you die. I didn't tell her what the Taoist priest said. I didn't want her to worry. In the evening, I made her a lavish dinner. All dishes that she liked. She ate a lot. After dinner, I told her to go to sleep. Get a good night's sleep, and when you wake up tomorrow, everything will be fine, I said. She nodded and obediently went to sleep. I watched her fall asleep before going to the kitchen. I took out a knife from the cupboard, a very sharp boning knife. 100-year-old Polygonum multiflorum, Tian Shan snow lotus I don't have, but a person willing to die for her. I have. Isn't it just heart's blood? This life of mine originally belonged to her. Now, returning it to her is not bad. I took off my shirt and faced my heart. I gestured for a moment. Then, I closed my eyes and stabbed down with the knife. When the tip of the knife pierced into my flesh, it hurt a lot. But it didn't seem to hurt that much either. My mind was full of Feng Nanyan's image. The hollow look in her eyes when she first met me. The impatient look on her face when she taught me to write. The way she held me in the broken temple and called me idiot. And the way she cried like a child in my arms. Scene after scene, like a magic lantern, blood flowed out along the knife wound. I used a bowl I had prepared beforehand to catch a blow. The blood was hot. My strength was also draining away, little by little, with the blood. I felt a little cold. My eyelids were getting heavier and heavier. Just when I could barely hold on any longer, the kitchen door was kicked open. Feng Nanyan stood in the doorway. She looked at me, at the knife in my chest, and at the bowl of blood in my hand. Her eyes instantly turned red. Li Shanggan. She screamed with all her might and rushed towards me. She wanted to pull out the knife in my chest, but didn't dare. She wanted to help me up, but was afraid of touching my wound. She was so anxious that tears streamed down her face. Why did you do this? You idiot, she scolded me, crying. I looked at her and smiled. Not an idiot, I said. To die for you, it's worth it. Nanyan, drink this bowl of blood. I won't drink it, she shook her head. I don't want you to die. I want you to live. Listen to me. My voice was getting weaker and weaker. Drink it, and you can live. I don't want to, she cried even harder. If you live, I can be at peace. After I said that, I felt darkness envelop me, and I knew nothing more. I seemed to have a very long dream. In the dream, I returned to that muddy ground. I became that little beggar again, fighting with dogs for half a steamed bun. I was very hungry, very cold. I felt like I was about to die. Just then, a beam of light shone in. It was Feng Nanyan. She was still dressed in white, like a fairy. She reached out her hand to me. Li Chang'an, come with me, she said. I put my hand in her palm. Her hand was very warm. When I woke up, I found myself lying in bed. My chest was wrapped in thick bandages. The wound still hurt, but it didn't seem so fatal. I turned my head and saw Feng Nanyan was lying next to my bed. She was asleep. Her face was very pale, and there were tear stains on the corners of her eyes. One of her hands was still tightly clutching mine. I moved a little, and she woke up with a start. When she saw that I was awake, she was first stunned, then overjoyed. You're awake. You're finally awake. She pounced on me, wanted to hug me, but was afraid of touching my wound. How do you feel? Does it still hurt? She asked anxiously. I shook my head. I didn't die. I asked. No, she sniffled. You won't die. Then your goo. It's been cured, she said. I was stunned. Cured? How were you cured? Did you think only your blood could save me? She looked at me, her eyes filled with heartache, reproach, and a hint of cunning. Li Chang'an, have you forgotten what my master did for a living? My master? Her master was the previous head of Duan Yun Temple, an extraordinary person skilled in both medicine and poison. What my master left me wasn't just a sword manual, Feng Nanyan said. There's also a medical scripture which recorded all the strange poisons and goo techniques in the world, as well as their antidotes. There are 2 ways to cure the heart-eroding goo. One is to use the heart's blood of one's beloved as a catalyst, and the other is... She paused. To use phoenix perching on wutung grass combined with dragon gall, brewed for 49 days. The reason I haven't cured myself all along is that phoenix perching on wutung grass only grows on the cliffs of Duanyun Mountain and is extremely difficult to pick. And dragon gall was something Qin Ya always kept close to his person. After I killed him, I got the dragon gall. Then I returned to Duanyun Mountain and spent half a year picking the phoenix perching on wutung grass. I brewed the medicine and hid it in a very safe place. Then I came to find you. I originally thought, after I found you, I would torture you enough before going back to drink the medicine. Who knew you were such an idiot? As she spoke, her eyes reddened again. After listening, I was completely dumbfounded. So, all this time, she had already prepared an antidote for herself. Did I just take a knife for nothing? I looked at the bandage on my chest, and then at her. I suddenly felt so angry. Feng Nanyan, I call her name. Why didn't you say so earlier? She looked away guiltily. I forgot. She could forget something so important. I understood. She didn't forget. She did it on purpose. She wanted to see me worried about her, risking my life for her. This woman, so malicious. I was so angry I couldn't speak. Feng Nanyan looked at me, knowing she was in the wrong, and didn't argue with me. She lowered her head, like a child who had done something wrong. I'm sorry, she said softly. Looking at her like this, the anger in my heart instantly dissipated. What else could I do? I have a soft heart, especially for her. I sighed. Forget it, I said, as long as you're okay. She looked up, her eyes shining brightly at me. You're not angry with me anymore? I am, I said, angry enough to spank you. Her face turned bright red in an instant. You? What nonsense are you talking about? I'm not talking nonsense. I looked at her. I remember there was a time before, when you were disobedient, I think I spanked you. I was talking about the time when she had amnesia. Once she was throwing a tantrum and refused to take her medicine, so I held her on my lap and gave her 2 symbolic pats. She even cried from the unfairness then. Thinking about it now, I kind of miss it. Li Chang'an, if you talk nonsense again, I'll tear your mouth off. She was both embarrassed and angry and raised her hand to hit me. But seeing the wound on my chest, her hand stopped in midair. In the end, she could only glare at me resentfully. Looking at her like this, I couldn't help but laugh. Laughing, I aggravated the wound. This, I gasped. Don't laugh. She quickly came over and supported me. Does it still hurt? It hurts, I said. My heart hurts. What does your heart hurt about? My heart hurts for that bowl of blood, wasted for nothing. She didn't say anything again. She just looked at me, her eyes filled with guilt. Li Chang'an, she suddenly called me very seriously. From now on, you're not allowed to do such stupid things again. She said, your life is mine, and without my permission, you're not allowed to die. Okay. I nodded, and from now on, I'll protect you. Her voice was very soft, but very firm. Looking at her, my heart felt warm. I felt that this stab I took wasn't too much of a waste. At least, it earned me those words from her. In the following days, I just focused on recovering. Feng Nanyan really treated me like a fragile object, not letting me do anything. Clothes were brought to me when I stretched out my hand. Food was brought to my mouth when I opened it. She didn't even open the noodle shop. She hung a sign on the door that read, Boss injured, temporarily closed. She stayed by my side every day. When I slept, she read a book. When I woke up, she talked to me. We talked about a lot of things, talking about her experiences over the past 3 years, how she healed her wounds, how she gradually tracked down Chin Ya, how she killed him, and how she found me. She spoke very calmly, but I knew that there must have been a lot of dangers and hardships in it. I also talked to her about my past 3 years, about how I opened this noodle shop, how I got to know the neighbors in town, about how every night I looked at the moon and thought of her. It was like we were trying to make up for all the things we missed in the past 3 years. One day, I asked her, Nanyan, what about the leader of your Heavenly Fiend Alliance? Will he still come after you? Feng Nanyan shook her head. No, he won't. Why? Because what my master left me, besides the sword manual and medical texts, there was also something else. What is it? The Duan Yun sect's leader token, she said. That token can command all disciples who have come from the Duan Yun sect. The Heavenly Fiend Alliance leader is a traitor my master expelled from the sect years ago. The reason he wants the leader token is to legitimately control the entire Duan Yun sect's power. Now that he knows I'm not dead and I've broken the curse, he'll only hide and won't dare show his face again. I listened and breathed a sigh of relief. The biggest threat was also eliminated. She and I could finally live a peaceful life. My injuries healed day by day. I could already get out of bed and walk. That day, the weather was very good. I leaned against the wall and walked to the yard to bask in the sun. Feng Nanyan was practicing her sword in the yard. Under the sunlight, her swordsmanship was still so beautiful. She finished a set of sword techniques, sheathed her sword, and walked to my side. How is it? She asked me. Beautiful, I said. I'm asking you, does your wound still hurt? It doesn't hurt anymore. I shook my head. She looked at me and suddenly said, Li Chang'an, let's get married. I was stunned. Aren't we? Weren't we already married? That doesn't count, she shook her head. At that time, it was my master who decided to marry you to me. You didn't even have any room to resist. I thought about it, and it seemed that was the case. Back then, I was just a small beggar, and her master saw my extraordinary bones and made me marry into the Duan Yun sect. I was so happy that snot bubbles came out of my nose. How could I resist? This time, Feng Nanyan looked in my eyes and said very seriously, I want you to marry me willingly. I looked at her, looking at the expectation and trepidation in her eyes. I suddenly wanted to tease her. Then I have to think about it, I said. The expression on her face froze instantly. What did you say? I said, I have to think about it. I pretended to be very embarrassed. After all, you have a bad temper, you can't cook, and you'll even break my bowls. Before I could finish speaking, she stepped on my foot. Li Chang'an, say that again. Ouch, I cried out in pain. I won't say it, I won't say it. I'll marry you. I'll marry you right away. Only then did she let go of my foot. But on her face, there was a triumphant smile. I knew I'd been tricked by her again. This woman is getting worse and worse. Feng Nanyan and I held another wedding. Right here in this small noodle shop. No sedan chair carried by 8 men. No phoenix coronet and robes of rank. Just the two of us. I used the money I had saved to buy a piece of red cloth and hung it in the shop. I also bought 2 red candles. Feng Nanyan wore a red dress. That dress was one I bought for her, made of the best material in town. She looked especially beautiful in it, more beautiful than when she wore white. I also changed into a new set of clothes. We kowtowed to heaven and earth. Then we kowtowed to each other. I looked at her, and she looked at me. In the candlelight, her face was flushed red, and her eyes were bright. Wife, I called her. She responded, her voice like the buzzing of a mosquito. I picked her up in my arms. She exclaimed softly and wrapped her arms around my neck. Your injuries haven't fully healed yet. They have, I said. I still have the strength to hold you. I carried her into the inner room and placed her on the bed. Red sheets, red quilt. Everything was red. Very festive. I looked at her, my heart pounding wildly. She also looked at me, her eyes a little evasive. That decisive phoenix, the heroine of the martial world, was now shy. I leaned in, wanted to kiss her, but she turned her head away. Li Chang'an, she called me. I have a question for you. What is it? The letter you left me when you ran away, saying you ran off with another woman. Who was that woman? I was stunned. Of all times, she was asking about this. There was no such person, I said. I made it up. I don't believe you. She shook her head. You must have taken a fancy to some tofu beauty or a flower-selling girl a long time ago. No, really, there wasn't, I said at a loss for words. Then swear it. I swear it. I raised 3 fingers. I, Li Changyin, in this lifetime, only have Feng Nanyan in my heart. If there's even half a lie, let all the noodles I make in the future become soggy. She laughed. That's a pretty harsh oath. Her smile immediately lightened the atmosphere in the room. She didn't dodge anymore. She leaned in and kissed me, just once like a dragonfly skimming the water. Then her face turned as red as a monkey's bottom. My heart melted instantly. I embraced her and kissed her deeply. The next day, I woke up very early. Feng Nanyan was still asleep in my arms. She was sleeping soundly, with a smile on her lips. Looking at her, I felt that this lifetime was worth it. I got out of bed gently, not wanting to wake her. I went to the kitchen and started kneading dough. Today, I'm going to make a bowl of the most delicious noodles for my newly wedded wife. I was kneading the dough when Feng Nanyan woke up too. She had a coat draped over her shoulders, leaning against the doorframe, watching me. Not going to sleep a bit longer? I asked. Not sleeping. She shook her head. I'll help you. She walked over and naturally picked up a bunch of scallions. She started chopping. Her knife skills were still as terrible as ever. The scallions were chopped unevenly, some thick and some thin. But watching her, I found it particularly pleasing. Wife, I said. For now on, let's call this noodle shop Phoenix Goose Noodle Shop. Her hand paused as she was chopping the scallions. She turned her head, looked at me, and smiled. Okay. The sunlight shone in from the doorway, landing on us. Warm and comforting. I knew our story had only just begun. The days ahead would be like this bowl of noodles. Simple, but steaming hot and full of flavor.